Hey guys, today we are going to be doing a huge craft supply haul from Wish. I tried to get an assortment of things for sewing, painting, and general crafting, and I did open a couple things to check and make sure I had everything, but for the most part, I've not tried any of these things before, so let's jump into it. Let's start with the fabric first. I'm not sewing with it yet, but I'm going to look at the quality of the fabric compared to a cheap white cotton I have. There actually isn't a lot here in terms of the size and the amount of fabric you get for the price with the shipping. This came with a blue piece and a pink piece, and it's surprisingly soft. It's thin and it has a bit of a sheen to it, but I'm actually really surprised how soft and cute this piece is, so I'd say it's a thumbs up, really. It's a good deal. Next for fabric, there was this bundle of 10 by 10 inch squares, and I was a little disappointed with the listing and the way it's organized because you had to match up the colors with the item number, and I could have sworn I ordered a black and white package, but I got navy instead, and when I looked back at the listing, I did make a mistake ordering it. So it is a little complicated with that. And I also found that this fabric was sort of stiff and scratchier than the other one. It's also very thin. All of this cotton is thin, but it's not crazy thin. You could still use it. But the black gingham I also noticed was rougher than the others, so it's not the same type of fabric as the other squares. And the squares also don't match perfectly in the shade of blue on them, so I'm really not in love with this one. This one is another really soft one, like the bunnies. I wish they gave you more fabric though than this for the price, but I like the feeling of it, and they use the same shade of gray, so all the pieces do match, and I think that this one's an alright buy. That was it for fabric, so the next item is a French curve ruler. I won't bore you with too much footage of this, but I think it is helpful for making sleeves. And compared to the ones I've seen in stores, this one is pretty thin and cheap, but it's also flexible, so you don't have to worry about it breaking or anything, but I am worried it'll warp and bend over time. So it's okay, but it's not something that's going to last forever. These little clips might be my favorite thing in this haul. I used these to sew some vinyl for an upcoming video, and it was so much better than pins. These were cheap compared to a craft store. Like if you get a bag of these at the craft store, they are so expensive. And on Wish you could get any color or a rainbow pack. So I will actually be getting more of these, and I do recommend getting these for any sewing project. These pins came free with one of the fabric bundles I bought, but I couldn't figure out from the descriptions which one it was. But it didn't really matter anyway because these were not good. They looked fine when I opened them up and looked at them, but once I tried to use them, they bent, and the points were so dull that you couldn't push it through the fabric. So I would not get pins off of Wish because they're very cheap metal. The needles I found were much better. I just wanted the big needles, but it came with all the little ones as well, which I probably won't use. There are a few different types that are useful if you like hand sewing, but even just to get these big needles, I thought it was a good deal. I bought this narrow hem foot and tried desperately to make it work with my sewing machine, but even after watching tutorials, I couldn't get it to work. It is nice and heavy though, and a good price for all their sewing machine feet in general, so I would be willing to buy others and try them out too, but maybe not a hem foot because it was complicated. I've got my rotary mat out now to test an X-Acto blade knockoff. I like the extra blades and the case for them, but they are flimsy and they got dull really quick. It's not a perfect match for a real X-Acto blade, but it's cheap, so it might be worth it if you're not cutting any thick materials. The rotary blades were actually really impressive and a really good deal, especially because rotary blades are super expensive at craft stores, and these fit in my blade perfectly. They were really a good knockoff for the Olfa rotary blades. My only complaint is that they have some kind of grease on them, but it didn't show up on the fabric when cutting it, so I just kind of wiped it off the edges as I used it. And the blade worked really well on paper and fabric and is definitely worth the price. I've got some paper out for the next items because they're drawing tools. This was a really cute mechanical pencil with a sharpener in the top and refills. It also came with an eraser, and the writing rubbed off of the pencil, but that was okay because it was kind of lame. But the pencil does some really nice dark heavy lines that you can't completely erase, which is helpful if you're like sketching layers out. And I will probably get more of these or some refills for this one. I wasn't in love with the next pencil. It was marketed towards students for having a wide lead to fill in exam bubbles faster, which seems a little weird to me, but it was hard to control the line that it drew and the eraser didn't work. The graphite smeared really easily and it wasn't that revolutionary, so I would not use this for anything. I really wanted an electric eraser, but I have to say it is kind of difficult to control, and you can push the button for a lighter or heavier erasing, but it doesn't clean up everything, and you're limited to tapping spots you want to use it on to get some really clean erasing. Erasing, is that a word? I don't know. But I also think it's a bit high maintenance because you have to get the stains off of the eraser pieces to get a cleaner erasing. How many times am I going to say erasing? But so it's not much quicker than a pencil top eraser, and this was not made for any large surface area erasing, but I still think it's good for lightening up details and a good deal for the price. In fact, I wouldn't spend a lot on one of these erasers to begin with, so a site like Wish is the best place to get them. I've got some inks out to test these thin paint brushes next, and as you can see, there is some kind of goop on the brushes, and the bristles are all different lengths, which I don't know what that goop was or why they didn't take the time to make the bristles all the same. But I was surprised that they do work pretty okay. But they didn't wow me for the price. Little paintbrushes aren't that expensive to begin with, so they're okay for simple lines, but you can get much better packages of brushes at other stores for only like a couple dollars more, so I wouldn't get these again. The description for these tools says it's for fondant, but I got mine to use with Sculpey clay, and I'd say it's an okay deal for all of them, but I had some issues still. The ends were interchangeable and there was a good variety of tools, which was great, but the white plastic they're made from has seams in it that get imprinted on the clay, and I don't like that. I would get these tools again if I could find ones without the seams on the side, or like a metal version I think would be really nice, but these plastic ones were just difficult to work with because of those seams. I got these rhinestones and these pink tools that claim to be rhinestone tools from Wish, and I have to say they both disappointed me. The rhinestones are beautiful, but the listing claims there are over 1,000 of them, and there are far less than that. I think they're a good deal, but I still wouldn't believe the quantity, and I feel like you could get more for the same price if you got a listing that really sent you the right amount. The rhinestone tool was completely useless. It was supposed to pick up the rhinestones and place them where you want them, but the stones either got stuck in there or it wouldn't pick them up anyway, so I would not buy these. These beads were actually a really good deal, and I don't have much to say about them because they're beads and they worked really well. They look very high quality and there was the right quantity. I actually counted them all. And every bead has a hole in it and was shaped correctly, so I would get more of these. My first problem with this embroidery floss is that they didn't send me 50 like the listing said. I was short about 5 or so, and there were almost no red shades or neutrals. I got a lot of like pukey greens that I'm not really going to use, and it is a random assortment of colors, and there is no brand on the flosses at all, but there were several that appeared to have different labels, and I bought this all at one time, so I don't know why they had different manufacturers. They aren't as vibrant as the DMC floss that you would get at a craft store, but the quality is good, and if I could pick what colors I'm getting, then I would probably get more. The last product I got was the magic embroidery pen everyone struggles with. I got these things like months ago, so now there's a tons of videos on this, but this was actually the most expensive thing in this haul, and I thought it was worth it, although it definitely has a learning curve like the electric eraser. The instructions that came with it were in English, but they were pretty much useless, and many videos I looked up at the time of filming this did not explain how it works very well. So I'm just going to give a few tips and things that I noticed so that if you buy this, it's way easier for you. It doesn't say it, but you have to keep your needle very close to the fabric for this to work. And the settings are for how long you want it to stitch, like how wide you want the stitches to be, but you still can't pull the needle up too high no matter what setting it's on. The floss must be poked through the hole the way I'm doing it, with like the top of the needle facing up and the thread underneath, and it helps to poke it through at the same angle as well. You have to secure the loops in the back with thread or glue if it's going to be used for a patch or something. Otherwise, those stitches in the back will just rip out if they get caught on anything. And I think the tool is challenging, as is shown by the tons of videos now talking about how frustrating it is. But I will be using it more, and I think if you can figure out the learning curve on it, it is really useful. Finally, before we call this a haul, I do want to say I also purchased an embroidery hoop as well, but it never showed up. I waited like months, and it took forever to do this video because I waited so long for that embroidery hoop. So I messaged the seller, and they did give me a full refund, but I noticed they were acting as if it was lost in the mail when it told me right in my order history that they hadn't shipped it. So you do need to keep track of your packages and request a refund with these online stores if the items don't show up. And overall, all the transactions were good, and there were some hits and misses in the items. I think anything that I liked, I would suggest getting. So if you'd like to see me review some other products, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more crafty content. And I will see you guys later.